Hello everybody, I am Baltmatrix, and today we are taking a look at Grimlock. Why are you in frame?
Me Grimlock bored. Me Grimlock want more dinos. Me Slug here for interview? Not sure. Ooh, me Grimlock find more Dinobots. Wait, you not Slug, you Slug. Me Slug do not appreciate name change. Me Grimlock agree. Dumb name.
Alright everybody, today we are taking a look at Transformers Studio Series Leader Class Slug, aka Slug. This Dinobot came to me from the Big Bad Toy Store. That's where I purchased it. This figure is everything I've wanted in a mainline Slug. And yes, for this video review, I am going to be calling him Slug. I refuse to call him Slug. It's a dumb name. Head sculpt is excellent and looks incredibly good. I can't get over how good that looks. And it's painted well, the eyes work really well. It's just, you know what? The paint on the entire figure is good. It's excellent. The overall aesthetic of the figure works just so nicely, and I love how they've hidden the tail in the robot mode, or tucked it up better than the original Generation 1 figure, and let's face it, a lot of the other versions of this character. Slug has good posability, however the head is a bit of a problem. You can't really get your fingers in there that easily. I've got to push the head down into the chest a little bit in order to turn it, so it is a little bit problematic, and the head kind of floats a little bit. I think that's just from me mistransforming it back from Dino Mode, because I seem to remember it stuck a little bit better when I first got it out of the box. Shoulders are on, ratcheting goodness! And then a hinge in and out, a swivel at the upper arm, bend at the elbow, and the fists swivel. Though the fists aren't painted on the inside. This is the white nylon plastic that is painted with this glossy charcoal. It's very odd, unlike Grimlock's, whose fists are all black. There is torso articulation, but you do end up moving the tail when you do turn it, and it is tight on my figure. Really tight. And every time I try to move the hips, I end up unwedging the backpack, which very loosely pegs in back there. Unfortunately, it's not a very tight peg. Nothing I can really do about it. Just gotta fiddle with it when I ever pose the figure. Legs are nicely posable with delicious ratchets in the hips, and then the legs can slide out for Van Dammes. Thigh swivel, bend at the knee. The bend at the knee, or the knees, are supposed to be ratcheted, but they're very loose ratchets. And I don't know if you can hear that. It's not the most, well, it's not the best knee in the world, let's just say. And then the feet can bend 90 degrees. And boy howdy, you can get a Van Damming dinosaur robot. This Leader Class figures comes with two accessories, the first of which is his gun, and it's a really nice little silver gun. It's much smaller than Grimlock's, but whatever, and fits in either hand with no problem, can peg into the shoulder with no problem, and can peg into any other port on the figure. And the figure has some ports on it. One at the shoulder, one at the hand, one at the lower leg, one on the bottom of each foot, and one on the back. I would armor him up with some weaponizers, but when I did that earlier, all the guns just looked too dang small on him. See what I mean? All the cogs bits just feel tiny on him. He's so big and bulky that all the line gimmicks from Siege just don't work. And speaking of things that don't work, Daniel! The figure comes with this little Daniel in an exosuit, and good God almighty, does this thing... It's just bad. It's just bad. It's supposed to be able to fit onto Slug's shoulder, which it does without any problems, but it's in this perpetual, like, just... this is so stupid. They did the same thing with Wheelie. So, Wheelie looks bad as well, perpetually stuck in this crouched position. Yes, I already have the upgrade kit on pre-order that pretty much just replaces this thing. The figure outright, it gives it a... Actually, I think it does replace the figure. I think the only thing you do is pop the head off. And I hope that the same people come up with something for Daniel, because, I mean, he's perpetually crouching, and, like, he's got to empty his weights disposal unit, and... Okay, well, he does have ball joints in the arms, so that's something. Slug's transformation is a fantastic update to the original Generation 1 figure. To start off with, straighten the front arms out, grab the fists, turn them around 180 degrees, and then fold them up into the forearms. And obviously do that for both sides. And that makes the hands hide away nice, neat, and you're not left with giant gaping holes on the side of the forearms in robot mode. Next, come down to the front of the chest and open it all the way up. Grab the head and push it down as far as it'll go, and then reach inside and grab the bottom of the dino mouth and flip it all the way up until it snaps into place. Once you've got the mouth up, come to the backpack and unpeg the backpack and just kind of fold it and pull it all the way out. Then we can take the head of the dinosaur and push it up just a little bit, and that's as far as it'll go upwise. Then come to the shoulders and grab the shoulder and fold it out and bring it down just a little bit, then flip up this white bit that's on the back of the shoulder and push the shoulder all the way into the open chest. And do the same thing on the other side, out, down a little bit, flip up the white bit, push the shoulder in as far as it'll go, line up the chests, or line up the shoulders, fold up the chest, push the head down, and then snap the little white bits into place to form the Triceratops crest. And that's the front of the Dino Mode, all done. Now for the back. Take the tail and flip it up out of the way, come down to the legs, and on the outside bottom of each of the legs there's this tab right here that unpegs. So do that on both sides. Reach inside the leg and flip out the dino hips like that, and then close those little tabs up again, like so. Straighten out the feet. Turn the entire torso around 180 degrees, like this. And make sure this is straight, because if it isn't, it's going to throw off everything with the transformation. And I screwed that up the first time I did this. Now, let's get the backpack and the tail up out of the way as much as possible. Now, the leg. Ratchet it up, fold it all, and then and collapse the leg all the way down. And then the bottom of the heel will peg into the back of the crotch, or the butt, really. So there's this little tiny peg on the inside of the rear of the heel, and that'll peg in right there. So lift the leg up, straight, and drop the lower leg down, and tab that into place. And they're very loose tabs. They don't tab in very tightly. And then we can bring the dino tail down. And this part always kind of throws me a little bit because I always end up popping off this piece of, or the piece of plastic, the tail. I end up popping the tail off because there's a tab that you're supposed to push the tail past. And every time yep, I did it again. Popped it right off. So what I do is I push the tab in and then bring it down like that, or reconnect the tail. Bring the hips, or bring the backpack all the way forward and tab it into place up top. Flip the legs down, push the legs in, and these little nubs that are on the top of the knees peg into the bottom of this gold piece right here. This will flip down, and there are little tabs on the inside of the legs that the tail section is supposed to tab into. Just get that all lined up. Get those pieces into place, flip the sides down, and the sides kind of peg into place in these little tabs. They don't peg in very tightly though, but they do peg in and snap into place, but it's not tight. It makes a nice sound though. Then for the legs, rear legs, we can just flip them and fold them out from the discs, like so. And finally, take his gun, and that will peg into the peg hole on the inside of the tail, so he has a tail gun. And there we have a wonderful Triceratops. The Triceratops mode is utterly fantastic and is so wonderfully G1 accurate that I cannot help but love it. This is the Dinobot Slag that I grew up with. Okay, Slug, for all you folks that want to call him that. I absolutely am just loving this figure. In this mode, he's got a couple of points to add weapons to. 2 holes on the each, or tops of each front shoulder, 1 on each of the side rears by the rear legs, and then the top. So you can armor him up, but he's just so big when you compare him to a deluxe class figure that it just doesn't work all that well. Plus these back peg holes are so close to the actual upper, well, rear legs that there's not a lot of clearance back there. So you have to pick something small and not very bulky. And then, let's just face it, this isn't working at all. Now, something I keep ending up doing is the one horn on my figure is very loose. So you just peg it back into place, but it does come off very easily. The other one, not so much. I think this horn actually might be broken, or at least this connector might be broken, because it looks like there's a little bit of marring right there. But nothing a little bit of Gorilla Glue won't fix, right? Still, oh, it looks so good. And here is Slag next to Grimlock, and oh, the thought that we're actually going to be getting more Dinobots. Please, Hasbro, please, I am begging you. Give me all 3 of the original Dinobots. Where is Sludge when you need him? And I can easily see Hasbro taking Slag here and giving it a really hefty retool to turn it into Sludge. There's a lot of transforming DNA here that is very similar between the two. So if we get Sludge next year, or heck, even Snarl, I would not be surprised if they're not very similar to Slag here. The figure is easily rideable by anything Voyager class or Deluxe class, though the Deluxe class has to work a little bit harder. Leader class figures, I wouldn't bother because it would just be like sitting on a giant walking angry chair. In Dino Mode, the mouth is openable, though you do have to be careful because if you try to open it too hard, you might accidentally untransform it. And it does have a little peg in there that you could attempt to attach a flame piece or a blast effect to, though doesn't work so well. The long thin blast effect is the only one. The long and thin blast effects are the only ones that I've been able to find that work well or can even peg in to that little piece in his mouth. And he's constantly barfing downwards as opposed to, being able to lean his neck back and barf forwards, which is a shame because the way it's angled right now, he can only give somebody a hot foot, and that really doesn't work so well on the battlefield, now does it? I mean, he could just get up on a cropping or stand up on a dead Decepticon and barf it out. I mean, that does work, technically. I would not be thorough in this review if I didn't include on how to actually put our little constipated human on top of the dinosaur. There are a couple of little pegs at the very top, just behind the dinosaur's crest, that Daniel's legs will peg into, or are supposed to. So you kind of spread his leg and... Well, that sure as hell doesn't work. What you're supposed to do is have Daniel literally straddle the entire dinosaur and peg very loosely his heels into those pegs. So you do get Daniel riding the dinosaur. I guess this works. It still looks awful. I wonder if it works with Wheelie. Yeah, it works with Wheelie as well. Sort of. Not well, though. But you can mount a Wheelie and a Daniel on both your Dinobots if you want to. Now, if you want some truly Generation 1 show-accurate Wheelie and Daniel action, I suggest you take those 2 figures that come with Grimlock and Slug and some butcher's twine or some butcher's rope and tie them up. and then throw them in a dark corner or a dark pit somewhere. I'm not even joking. In Transformers Headmasters, these two end up tied up by the Decepticons in almost every episode. It's kind of a running gag. No, I'm not making that up. I love Slug. I love it. Yeah. Slag is the real name, or his correct name, for me. But Hasbro hasn't called him Slag in a very long time. Like, ridiculously long, in fact. It is such a fun figure, at least for me. Now, obviously, I'm a G1 fan. That's what I grew up with. Have you grown up with G1? Let me know down in the comments. I would bet that a lot of you didn't. I would bet that a lot of you grew up with either Beast Machines or RID or the Unicron trilogy, which, yes, I'm getting a little bit G1 fatigue at this point. I really want to see Hasbro go for broke and give us some figures from those later seasons. And there is a huge part of the Transformers fan base that grew up with the Unicron trilogy on Cartoon Network. So I don't know exactly why they don't try to cater to those folks more. According to all the leaks, it looks like we're going to be getting more Transformers Prime figures, which, don't get me wrong, I'm very happy for that. Transformers Prime was an absolutely fantastic show and brought us some truly wonderful toys. But I'm scratching my head a bit because, I mean, you've got so many more shows that you haven't brought back or even acknowledged at this point. It's really kind of silly. So, Hasbro, what are you doing? I really want to know, because I got a lot of my viewers, or you folks out there, I know have said multiple times, hey, I grew up with Unicron trilogy, where are my figures? Is Leader Class Slug worth having in your collection? If you're a fan of those G1 Dinobots, abso-freaking-lutely. If you are not a fan of the G1 or the G1 Dinobots, maybe less so. I still think it is a great figure and worth having because it's just a ton of fun. It turns into a dinosaur, but you might not love the idea as much as us older fans, and that's fine. There is no problem with not liking something that a lot of other people do. That's perfectly fine. I still think this is a great figure, totally worth being in your collection. Head down to the link in my description to pick it up from the Big Bad Toy Store. So folks, let me know what you think of this down in the comments. Please be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. Thank you so much for watching. I have been Baltmatrix, and I'll catch y'all next time.